Hello and welcome to ETRetail's exclusive curtain raiser series ahead of our flagship e-commerce and digital native summit 2023. Today, we are speaking to the man who brought e-commerce to a highly fragmented and offline travel market, revolutionizing the way we plan our vacations. We have with us Rajesh Magow, the co-founder and group CEO of MakeMyTrip. Hello, sir. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Thank you.
So, sir, the theme of our discussion is Rise of India's Digital Economy.
Right.
You personally have been very vocal and a firm believer of India's digital story.
Right.
What opportunity do you see the country presents right now for global as well as homegrown brands?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And the whole country is talking about it and for the right reasons. So I think before you go for digital first, maybe you should just step back and see at the India level what's happening, right? I think it is at the country level. Given that we have a large size population, within that we have a large size of middle class, and that is sort of driving the overall consumer economy for India, right? Because that's very important, and that is, I guess the topic as well, right? So just from a retail consumption standpoint, we have a huge market, right? And just to give you some numbers, right? So if you look at the overall households in the country, we have about 300 million households. Now, 300 million households is equivalent to about 1.2, 1.3 billion population. And now within 300 million households, even if you remove, let's say, the 40% of the rural India, you still have 180 million households, which effectively means that it's a large size economy. I think that's the way to think about it. Now, on top of that, the digitization that is happening in our country is just phenomenal. And it has picked up pace in the last, I would say, about 10, 15 years, right? When we, if I look back, when we started our operations back in 2000, and now we've come a long way. We've come a long way in making investments in the digital space. We've come a long way in building platforms, democratizing the digital, just in terms of reach, improving the bandwidth, overall infrastructure, the payment side of it. It's huge, and that is the phenomenal investment that is happening. So therefore, if you just combine the two, it's a phenomenal opportunity right now for anyone who wants to get into consumer-led business, just because of the sheer size of the economy.
So you have pointed out some very relevant numbers and set the tone for our discussion.
Right.
For consumer-led businesses, when we talk about building these brands for the next 100 years,
right,
what are some do's and don'ts every entrepreneur needs to keep in mind?
It's a very interesting question, a very pertinent one as well. So let's go with the don't first. All right. So what is that, out of our learning experience was that, the businesses or the entrepreneurs shouldn't really be doing it. I think the biggest one is, the idea or the notion of that you can build brand by just spending ton of money, right? It's not about going out, doing the advertisement, doing the marketing activities, just spending huge amount of, money behind it and think that we'll be able to build the brand. And that's really the biggest don't, if you ask me. I think the focus should be, actually answer lied in the question itself. What is that we should do it from a consumer point of view? So the key word here is the consumer. So if you start to have any brand, anyone who's setting it up new, who's obviously, or it's a growing brand, and you would realize, and there will be, I don't know how many case studies around it, that you will realize that the focus of the brand has always been around consumer. And what is that we need to do for the consumer? So if you are a product company, you need to fix the product first. You need to fix the product, continuously keep innovating around product, just to continuously keep meeting the latest demands or, picking up the insights from the market and meeting the demands of the consumer, right? So fix the product and fix the service, right? So if you bring in product and service together, that is what will build your brand from a long-term standpoint. Obviously, you will have to just create more, visibility. You will spend in the right areas to become more accessible to the consumer, improve the visibility, improve the salience, etc. goes without saying. So I'm not saying that you will not have to spend marketing dollars, but if you just focus on spending that and don't focus on fixing your product and service, you will not be able to build a long-term brand. So I think that's the way it should be looked at.
I think very hard facts there, sir, and every entrepreneur out there will, will really love, the fact coming from you.
I hope so.
So you also have been a very strong advocate of technology adoption.
Yes.
And over the years, we have seen that in MakeMyTrip's digital strategies.
Yes.
Just this morning, I read the news of ChatGPT and with MakeMyTrip, and that just reaffirms this notion. How should brands actually be leveraging technology to bring in economies of scale and revenue generation?
Yeah. No, and specifically from economies of scale perspective, this becomes super critical. And this is not about the businesses which is sort of like ours, right? We happen to be the technology first business, and then the domain for our business is travel, right? But even if you're not technology first, which means that if you are not like a internet-led business, or you are a digital platform where the business model is built on, for even other businesses, whether it is automobile today, or if it is FMCG, or it is something else, all of those businesses need serious investments in technology from a scale standpoint. I mean, your question was around economies of scale, right? So I think more and more you invest in the right areas. Of course, you will have to invest in your core, right? So if let's say you are a manufacturing unit, you have to have the right kind of technology, right kind of design for product. You will have to invest in the research and development. You will have to do all of that. You will have to also invest behind the distribution channels, right? So those are the fundamentals of the business that you will have to invest. But for achieving economies of scale, if there is one area that can help you achieve economies of scale in a big way, is investment behind technology. Now, that could result into different kind of automation, which will give you productivity and enhancement. It could also result into bringing in technology, which is the latest, which can improve your product experience hugely. It can improve your service experience hugely, or even sort of interacting with the consumers, right? So whichever way you want to look at it, I think in today's world, if a business is not paying attention to investment in technology, likely to lag behind as against anyone who's really focusing on it.
Very rightly said, sir. So when we speak of e-commerce, the numbers are very positive, and the trend is booming in the country. However, penetration still stands at 5 to 6%, both buyer and seller side. What can online businesses learn from offline kiranas or offline giants to drive this penetration?
I think it's a really good question as well. The way I see this number, whether it is lower penetration, whether it's 5% or 6% overall, or if you want to see it from a category to category standpoint, the number might look different. But the reality is that if there are 600 million smartphone users today, out of the 800 million internet users, the people who are buying online or transacting online are about 150 to 200 million. So therefore, there's huge amount of headroom opportunity there. That can we just try and look for a now innovative solution? And in the beginning that you mentioned about our sort of latest release that happened, and that was with that thought only. That was with that thought only, that how do we now make sure that if the urban areas internet penetration or the e-commerce penetration has achieved certain levels, can we now go to and make sure that the tier 3 and the tier 4 city users also have a solution that will help them come on the internet? And more from an e-commerce standpoint, they're already on the internet, they're consuming content, they're on the WhatsApp, they're exchanging messages. They also do peer-to-peer payments, but not necessarily they might be very comfortable in buying, let's say, certain products of travel or certain other categories, right? They may not be that savvy. And there are barriers around it. And there's a language barrier, there is a sort of inhibition generally, and good old days, there used to be also the perception that whether it is safe to transact online or not. And a huge amount of investment has gone around that by the entire ecosystem, all the players involved in the ecosystem. And that perception has started to go away. But, can I make it more convenient? Can I make it more easier? Can I make it more simpler for the person? Removing some of those barriers for them to be able to just adapt to the e-commerce really well. So I think that is where a lot of the B2C e-commerce companies are actually investing behind, trying to come up with innovative solutions which could make the interaction the e-commerce interaction with the platform super easier. And that is what we are trying to do with our, this whole conversational flow that we've just recently launched. It's a beta launch right now. We want to get more insights, but we want to then expand it to many vernacular languages.
Yeah, I think this is the trend why we see giants focusing on vernacular languages, the entire rise of content to commerce in the industry.
Yes, yes. It's kind of unique if you think about it. It's kind of unique to India in many ways because we've got too many languages. The country is large, many states, and a lot of people still like to interact in their own regional local language and feel comfortable with it.
I think it's a beautiful trend if we can track that.
Yes.
Yeah. So one last question. What is that one quality in the next digital leaders you see that will help them become the leaders?
Yeah, I think it's a good question, and there are many qualities, and I'm sure there are, and there are very, very capable lot out there. I mean, as you see and interact with, young entrepreneurs, you see huge amount of talent. I don't think there's any dearth of talent in our country. I think one of the things that perhaps, again, from the learning experience that I can share, that would potentially help is that an overarching sort of quality, if we are able to imbibe, and that is about how do I run my business truly entrepreneurially? The entrepreneurial spirit, which is there in India and huge amount of talent, but it brings in huge amount of passion and ownership, right? So if we bring in that spirit and we continue to keep doing it, it also gives you ability to sort of withstand the shocks of the market because the journey is never easy. There will be ups and downs. But am I thinking long-term? Am I thinking long-term building businesses? Am I thinking long-term building scaled-up businesses? And for that, I'm ready to sort of go think long-term and execute in a manner that I continuously keep sort of relentlessly at it. I think it's all about, how do I run my business like an entrepreneur, right? So the moment that sort of ability comes in, more from a leadership capability standpoint, everything else will fall in place.
Wonderful. I think this will be my biggest takeaway from this interview.
All right. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much for your time, sir.
Thanks.